if your kid looks like two different kinds of players, one that's a beast in the cage and one that's not in the game, most people think it's confidence, but it's actually not. It's probably because they have one of two personality types that tend to show up under pressure, and most parents are trying to fix the wrong one. So in this video, I'm going to show you two personality traits to look for that will tell you if your kid's going to choke or if they're actually going to show up in the game, and how to fix it if you've got a kid who's the wrong one. Now, what you're looking for is whether your kid is in what they call a challenge mindset or a threat mindset. So let me explain what both these are. A threat mindset is a kid who's thinking things like, what's mom gonna think? Or I just don't want to strike out, or I know coach wants me to do this, but I'm scared. That kind of a kid is a kid who's in protection mode. Where a challenge mindset kid is a kid stepping in thinking, I'm gonna do damage. I'm taking this guy deep. I'm the best player out here. That's a kid who's in challenge mode. So when your hitter is struggling, that's the first thing that we have to look at. Which side of the fence are they on with that kind of personality? Are they leaning towards the challenge or threat, or are they trying to avoid it? Because everything else you're seeing, the timing, the bat speed, the way the swing looks, it comes from understanding where those thoughts are at in their brains. Now, if your kid sounds more like the second one, let me share a story with you about my daughter recently who went through this exact same thing, and I'll show you some ideas that you can try for how to fix it. So last year, she was hitting really, really well for a local team and ended up doing so well that she ended up being recruited to a national team. But with that came a little bit more pressure, more eyes on her, more expectations, more everything. And she started off great, hit this home run, smoke on the ball, but then in some of the hitting workouts, a coach noticed something with her swing. She was wrapping her bat a little bit too much in the cage. And so he gave her some advice to clean it up. And to be clear, I don't think that this coach was wrong, but here's where I think it can go sideways. They were fixing something in the cage, and it was showing up in the cage that wasn't actually showing up in the game, like you see with the home run here where she wasn't wrapping. So before you ever try to go fix mechanics, the first question I'd always recommend that you do is to ask yourself, are the mechanics that we're trying to fix here actually showing up in the game? Or is this just showing up on a tee or some front flips? Because in my daughter's case, it wasn't actually happening in the game. But check this out. The training totally worked. She totally stopped wrapping her bat. But then something else happened. She started struggling, and we couldn't figure out why. So that brings me to the second thing that you want to do if your kid is lacking confidence. One of the fastest ways to get your kid back on track and get them their confidence back is to go back and look at what they were doing when they were dangerous at the plate. So we pulled up her old swings. We pulled up her home runs, all those hard line drives, and we put them side by side in a video editing program to see what she was doing then versus what she was doing now. And immediately something jumped out. When she was hitting balls out of the yard, her top hand had this really aggressive pullback right before she launched. Now, I'm not saying that your kid has to do that. Everybody's swing is different, but for her, that ended up being a huge piece of her power and her timing. And so when she started trying to not wrap, this disappeared because she was just trying to keep her hands there to not make a mistake. But for my daughter, that was a huge piece of her power and more importantly, her timing. And so when she started trying to not wrap, that extra little oomph disappeared. And so now her hands just stayed there. So there wasn't the extra stretch, there was no separation, and the time to contact scores with her swing started to get slower. So instead of using that elastic energy, she was just using her muscles. And because she's a little undersized, that ended up mattering a lot. Because if you didn't know, there's a tissue in your body called fascia. It runs up your legs, and once it hits your hips, it crosses across your torso. And if you stretch that tissue before you flex it, it makes you way more explosive. But if you don't get access to that power. So now all of a sudden, my daughter's late, she's under ball, she's popping things up, and everything feels slower because she wasn't getting the stretch. And the crazy part is, it wasn't a swing problem. It was just a mindset problem, or at least the mindset problem caused the swing problem. So she went from, I'm going to do damage, to, I don't want to make my coach upset that I'm doing something wrong. And so she went from challenge to threat. So to fix it, instead of adding something new, all we did is showed her that footage and just got her to get back to what she was doing when she was going well. And almost immediately, she started hitting balls hard again. And I mean, one of the hardest balls I've ever seen her hit this past spring just happened a couple weeks ago. This low, super screaming line drive out to left field. All because we showed her the video when she was going good. But here's the part most people miss. Confidence is not something you just talk your kid into. It's not be confident or just relax or just have fun. Confidence is what shows up when your kid is in a position to actually compete instead of trying to not mess up. And that does not happen by accident, because this is just one piece of the puzzle. You still need movement. You still need mechanics to pull this all off. And you need a system that actually helps you transfer all this stuff to games. And that's exactly why we built something called a Power Pillars program. And it's how we make sure your kid doesn't just look good in the cage, but can actually show up in games. And I recently did a full workshop where I break down this whole system. It's a 9-part system and how all the parts work together. And if you would like to see that, go watch this next video right here, because I think it'll give you some ideas on how to help your kid get back to competing instead of trying to just not mess things up anymore.